Welcome to Film Freaks. This is Justin Llewellyn.
And Eddie Williams.
And for a special occasion, me and Eddie are actually deciding to do something a little different this time. Now, for those of you who have been watching most of our reviews, if you notice that we typically like to do movie reviews, a few months ago, I actually did I think it was about a month or two ago, I did a review for Twin Peaks: The Return, which was actually my first TV show review. So, with this new occasion, me and Eddie decided to do something different and talk about the newest season of Stranger Things, which is on Netflix.
Yeah, and we've usually we kind of like to keep TV shows on written reviews, but we say what the hell, we want to give this a shot. Not to mention that the Stranger Things is a big hype show, so
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We thought it'd be cool to do the an actual audio. Now, keep in mind, when you watch this, I did do a written review on season 1 where you can find on our website.
Yeah, you can go on our website at filmfreaks.com. Eddie actually did a written review of the first season that you're welcome to check out as well for those of you who haven't seen yet of the first season or the first season of Stranger Things. But anyway, with this one, now keep in mind, we're going to go into this with the best intentions to not go into too much spoilers. When we get to this is going to be have some spoilers in, but we'll let you know when the spoilers come in later in this discussion. But basically, to go into this, we're reviewing the second season of Stranger Things, which was the show that's released on Netflix, and it was created by the Duffer Brothers. Now, a little backstory real quick for this. Stranger Things was a show that, when I first heard about it coming out last year, I saw the trailer of it, and it got me really hyped, because from the look of it, it looked like they were doing kind of basically a throwback to stuff from like the 80s, stuff inspired by John Carpenter, Stephen King, Steven Spielberg, things like that.
I did see the trailer to season 1 before season 1 came out. What was really interesting is I was liking the vibe of the 80s things, but I also wasn't really. I didn't start out watching the season as it came out. I ended up watching the first season because it came out in October. I think I ended up watching it towards December. So I think I was 2 months late on the first season because it was one of those shows that I actually didn't know nothing really about. I hadn't seen the trailers and thought it looked cool, but I waited for other people to actually talk about it, and little do we finally, we learned that the show ended up getting so much hype that the world was talking about it, and I went ahead and, I ended up watching it.
Yeah, and to kind of correct you on that, last year it was released in the summer. It came out in July.
Oh yeah, the summer. Okay. So anyways, I still watched it in November, December. Because I remember it was like fucking near Christmas when I watched it.
Yeah. Well, and
it was late. I was really late, man. I was really late because I didn't know nothing about it. But then I guess it was one of those shows that ended up grabbing everybody, and then everybody was talking about it, and that's what made me want to watch it.
Yeah, and with that show too, with the first season, when I finally took the time to watch it, I gotta say I was very impressed by it. Like, this is a show that I think. Too. Yeah, me too. I think this is a show that, even if you take out the 80s references and stuff, I think it can still also work on its own. Because to basically go into the story of it, well, the first season was about these kids that were in this small town called Hawkins, Indiana, which is in the 1980s. And it dealt with basically a disappearance of a boy named Will, because it dealt with 4 friends. It was Will, Mike, Lucas, and Dustin. And these kids are basically, your typical boys that like to hang out and play Dungeons and Dragons. They like movies and stuff, things like that. And the first season was their friend Will basically ended up disappearing because at the very beginning of the first episode, he gets basically abducted by this supernatural force. And the rest of the season deals with the investigation of what happened to him. While at the same time, you also get introduced to this this girl that's from like this scientific laboratory kind of place where like these scientists or researching on her and stuff. And her name, she goes by the name 11, and basically that story dealt with her having to basically she doesn't really know who she is, and when she escapes, she goes on the run, and that's when you have like these scientist guys that are pretty much looking for her. That's very reminiscent of something we've seen like in E.T. basically.
Yeah, it was exactly like E.T. And it was also different from this season we're about to talk to, season 2. It's because this one really didn't have much of the Halloween theme going on. Like you said, I stand corrected. I forgot when it came out. The first season did, and it was a summer release. Now that they finally established a Halloween release now with the new Stranger Things, like this one, and 3 is supposed to come out in Halloween next year. We're seeing more of the Halloween themes, which is pretty cool. Which we'll talk about that here in a minute.
Yeah, in the first season and in the second season, you had also the parents involved with looking for Will as well. The mother is played by Winona Ryder, who plays Joyce Byers, and it was actually was another thing I was really looking forward to too with the show, was that I hadn't seen Winona Ryder in such a long time, and it was great to see her back into doing something again like this.
And not only that, with season 1, with the first season, we also hadn't seen him in a while. The guy who played Private Joker.
Yeah, Matthew Modine. Yeah, he played the scientist that was in charge of the laboratory that experimented on 11, and
which is AKA Papa.
Yeah,
so pretty big dick in that movie, that show.
Yeah, and then you also had the boys. You had Mike, played by Finn Wolfhard, who played Richie in the new It film.
It.
Yeah, and you also got 11, played by Millie Bobby Brown. And then you got Dustin, who's basically the one with the kind of that causes him to lisp a lot.
And he was born with some kind of like a
cleidocranial dysplasia.
Yeah, but pretty much this show ended up being so big it actually introduced us to probably later on down the road, 20 years from now, 10 years now, our feature and acting.
Yeah, because
we've seen these people in a bunch of movies.
Well, yeah, and not just that, but you also get a lot of other characters too, besides the kids and the scientists and all that. You also get some other ones that you typically would see also in like some John Hughes films in the 80s. Like you got the sister, and you got like the kind of photographer brother, the brother of Will, who's like the photographer Jonathan. And then you got like the kind of the dickish type dude named Steve.
Cut you off real quick. That photographer, he'll be in the New Mutants movie coming out next year.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, Charlie Heaton is his name. Yeah. And then you also got the character Steve, played by Joe Keery, who's basically who's like the bully of the series in the first season.
Yeah.
In the first season.
First season. Yeah.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, like, all the characters I found very, like, both in the first season and the second season, I found very interesting, because...
Oh, yeah, I thought they great chemistry in the first season, and, I liked the mystery behind the first season. The mystery of it was really strong, and pretty much, if you go to my written review, you'll see what I said, what I loved about season 1, and I ended up giving that one a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, and I really got into the way that, and to kind of lead into this, because this goes also with season 2, the 11, the girl we discussed earlier, she's a girl that has like psychokinetic abilities, where she basically can do kind of things similar to Carrie and stuff like that, and she also doesn't really speak a lot because she has limited vocabulary. But she will basically become like one of the best parts, one of the biggest highlights of both season 1 and season 2.
Yep.
And so as you can tell, I really did enjoy the first season a lot, and it really got me hyped up to see what they did with season 2, because now with season 2, basically it deals with.
We ended up having since we had the big hype, they decided that, it was probably a good idea. We started making this into a big series.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because before the hype, they didn't know how well it was going to do, and it was only signed on for one season, but it broke records apparently in most watched Netflix show of all time.
Yeah.
something like that. But yet, and that's what we ended up getting a season 2 a year later from the first movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so with this season, now to kind of lead into this, because keep in mind this will contain some spoilers that we're leaving from season 1 to kind of lead into this one. Basically, to set things up, this is set a year after the events of the first film. Now, the first season. The second season shows that Will, the boy from the first season who got abducted, he is basically going through a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder, and he's seeing some weird things that's causing him to pretty much experience like this world called the Upside Down world.
Yeah.
And the show also...
It feels like he sees it like it's coming to our world, is what he's seeing.
Yeah. And basically it because at the end of the first season he was basically seeing visions of that world coming to in his head basically. And so with this one he's starting to basically not only see weird stuff, but it's almost like he's transported into that world, kind of like off of Nightmare on Elm Street or something.
Yep.
And the rest of the season
force against his will.
Yeah. Which his name is Will.
Yeah, no pun intended.
Yeah. And so the rest of the season also focuses on 11 basically coming back, because at the end of the first season it showed that she pretty much got killed, but we seen that at the very end of it that the main, we've got to talk about this, the chief of police, Officer Hopper, he was basically taking care of her. In this season, we see that he's actually taking care of her the last year after she escapes this portal from the Upside Down world.
Yeah, and that's where you see at the end of season 1, he puts like the those waffles.
Yeah.
That's became 11's trademark now, is waffles. So
yeah,
you saw him doing the whole ego thing, and then season 1 ended, and then now you're led to believe that when she broke out of that portal, she was pretty much kind of like Roadrunner and Coyote type thing, where she was drawn to him.
Yeah, and with this one too, you also deal with pretty much you have the other characters that are introduced in this one too. Like at the very beginning of it, we see that there's a character that's kind of similar to 11. And they're doing like this because the first part of the episode actually takes place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where we see that there's a bank robbery taking place, and we discover there's a new character introduced who has like abilities similar to 11. And basically, as it goes along, we also get introduced to some other characters as well that we didn't see in the first season, such as that kind of Henry Bowers type dude, played by the dude who was in the recent Power Rangers movie.
Yeah, him, and then they now got and he has a sister who pretty much joins the clan of boys, and she goes by the name Mad Max. Yeah,
it's her stepsister, but yeah, she pretty much is basically, she's basically kind of like, she's independent and she's, good at video games and stuff like that, and she's a tomboy, yeah. And she basically catches the attention of both the black boy and Dustin, Lucas and Dustin is what I meant. And basically, this one also deals with a new laboratory that we get. Actually, it deals with that same laboratory from the first season, and this time we have a new.
It's under new ownership.
Yeah, it's under new ownership by the guy who's actually the same dude from Aliens, Paul Reiser. He played Burke from Aliens.
Yep.
And this one also deals with basically, it pretty much has like a different structure compared to the first season, because it's more about like the characters coming across the whole world itself rather than just seeing, rather than trying to go, well. It's like there's like so many different things going on with the story, but it deals with it's different than compared to the first season though.
Yeah. Now, like you said, with the whole, it's under new ownership. This one, they're not as ET in it as they did with the first season.
Yeah, this one feels more like Stephen King's It, and a little bit like I'd say a little bit with like Gremlins. Kind of.
No, like when I'm talking about like the facility.
Yeah.
They're not doing like the whole, like in the first season, this facility was after the kids. It felt like E.T. because that's all they were after. They were like out there trying to get you type thing. This one, it seems like this is like a more tamer ownership.
Yeah, that's right. And because
we left a big thing out because this is a big thing. People are wondering, okay, why did that facility not get in trouble from season 1? Well, apparently we're at the beginning of season 2. They said that we pretty much signed a contract to keep our mouth shut.
Yeah.
The people did. They made an agreement with the new ownership. If you kind of like tame it down and don't hack our shit and fuck with our shit, we will not go tell the police or FBI about you guys.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, and also the guy that's in charge of this, he's not as like strict as the guy in the first one, because in this one he actually cares about the residents of the city as well, or of the area, and also we forgot to bring this up. We also get introduced to a new character that's played by Sean Astin in this film or in this series, Bob, who's basically a former schoolmate that went to school with Joyce, Winona Ryder's character, and he's basically and he also is trying to basically try to get to know her and try to get with her basically.
Well, it starts out that they pretty much they're kind of dating, and they're pretty much seeing how far they can go in their relationship.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because as the series goes along, you actually kind of learn some, like, he actually has like an interesting character, because there actually is one part where, because throughout the show he's trying to get involved with Will and trying to be like kind of a father figure to him and everything. And, I found it very genuine and everything like that. But there is one part that actually makes me really interested in this character. There's a part where basically he's talking to him about how he remembers at a time when he was scared of clowns, and he actually faces fear by saying that he's not afraid.
Yep.
And so...
And which brings up a clever thing. I won't go into too much detail like I talked about earlier with Justin here, but we're led to believe that the clown incident that he had problems with happened 27 years prior to 84. This show, right in season 2, they're in 1984 now, and it happened 27 years prior, which sets it around 1950 something, whatever, in the 50s. And we're led to believe that there's a part where he does mention it, but he doesn't mention it connected to this scene, that he's actually moved to Indiana from Maine.
Yeah, which I found very interesting, because it's almost like you can kind of tell that this in a way, this film is this series is either taking inspiration. Well, it's taking inspiration, but you kind of get the idea that it could be set in the same universe as some of Stephen King's stories.
Yes.
So, which I found.
Not that you'll edit this part out. How are we looking out on battery and time?
We got 86 minutes.
Battery good?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to remind you so we don't fuck up.
Yeah, we're good.
Last time.
We're good.
All right, continue.
So, but yeah, I found that really interesting, man. Now, I can honestly say that after watching the series as this goes along, I can honestly say that I found this one to be quite as good as, maybe even better than the first season.
Yep, I agree with you on that.
To kind of get into my pros, like, once again, like the first season, I like all the characters in this. I think they're all very, they're really fleshed out. They have a lot of, like, parts that really, they all have, like, their own arc they go through that, really gets you into on how they face their fears, and they're having to, adjust to, like, kind of a coming of age story. Because some of the other characters, like we mentioned, like the bully from the first season, he actually becomes more of a three-dimensional character as well throughout the series, because he goes...
It's like, we didn't explain details about, like, the other part of it, the story.
Yeah. Basically, because the characters in this series overall, you get the idea that they're pretty much they're the token characters that you see in movies like Goonies, or you also seen stuff like the original It miniseries and things like that, and it still works out because they all have like they all have like their own personality that you can really buy behind, you know.
Yeah. So then we like as the story goes along, we start seeing Will, like we stated, seeing things. Instead of being kidnapped by the world like in the first one, he is seeing things, and it's like it feels like he's being kind of like possessed by these creatures. And while we got that going on, we end up finding a little kind of like a little Dustin. He ends up finding like one of those little slug creatures that ends up being like one of those like Demogorgon things.
Yeah,
we call them. One of those things. While that's going on, pretty much you got that story, and this is actually a different type season because 11 really doesn't, other than like the first 2 episodes, 11 actually disappears all the way up to the 7th episode.
Yeah, she's actually hardly in this because throughout the majority of it, she's in it, but that's another thing we have to get into as well. This season also builds more onto, which I found very interesting. This season also builds onto 11's like backstory because in this one we get to see because she's told by Hopper, who's been taking care of her, that she had a mother, and so the rest of the season deals with her having to look for her mother, and basically it almost becomes like a completely different type of show when she does this.
Yeah, I know, and that's where we end up kind of around episode 7 where she's actually on the journey and she does find her mom, and then she starts learning about her history about, and which connects to that first episode, because in the first episode, it kind of feels like an X-Men show at the very first 10 minutes of it because you start to learn there's more kids with superpowers.
Yeah. And that's what kind of brings us back to the beginning of the first episode of this season, because that girl that we mentioned earlier, well, and for spoilers for those of you who haven't seen it yet, warning. This is going to have spoilers throughout, but we're just letting you know this is a big area. It turns out that that's actually her adopted sister.
Yep, and she had the same identical powers, which she was also involved with Papa. But I forgot how she got out of there.
From what I remember, well, I think I don't remember that exactly because it didn't really show like her flashback exactly. I don't remember seeing a flashback with her, so we can only guess that maybe she was taken away from others or something. I don't know, but because I don't remember that part.
Yeah, but and which is an interesting story because when 11 finds out that she had adopted a sister, it makes her want to go find her and connect with her. And for the first time, actually, other than that little Pittsburgh scene, we actually get to leave Hawkins.
Yeah, which I actually really enjoyed.
Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah, I love the change up they do because I like that they weren't just rehashing the same thing that the first season did. You know,
it's really weird how they did the Chicago scene, which she goes and finds out her sister's living at, and her sister is actually living a life as a kind of like an 80s punk rocker type thing, kind of like the show Warriors, but if it was set in the 80s.
Yeah.
And basically, while this girl was taking revenge on all the people who did the shit to her as a kid that from the facility that had any part to do with Papa and the facility, she's also living a life of like they're robbing and banks and shit like that, and just getting a bunch of money, stealing and doing juvenile shit.
Yeah, and in a way too, it also becomes kind of like, like you were saying, it kind of becomes a little bit like X-Men because we discover that there's more than one person, that there's more people like 11 that come from the same facility.
If you think about it, season 2 is kind of like giving us a little hint of what maybe the new show, the movie New Mutants is going to do in 2018.
Pretty much, yeah. But that's one of the things I really highly enjoyed this because it really feels emotional when you really learn more about like 11's backstory and everything. And we're not trying to go all over the place, but when you see her dealing with her sister and everything, it really makes you really feel the emotions out of her being long lost from her and everything like that. And you also
pretty much recruit 11 in their little clan.
Yeah. And then also we deal with the stuff going on back home with the kids having to deal with not only the little creature that's going around, from the school and stuff, and it kind of becomes like Gremlins in that one episode.
Yeah, and then you start seeing Will really getting possessed by this thing, and it's really taking over his body.
Yeah.
So it results in them having to, kind of pretty much go back to that mean hospital and get help from them. And then that's when we start learning that this hole, which we forgot to mention in some of the episodes, this hole is actually expanding and taking over the town.
Yeah, it's actually becoming a virus that's spreading around the town.
Yep, and it starts out underground. You start finding out that it's under the ground, and it's pretty much taking over the town, like where it's making vegetables and landscapes kind of rot, and then you start to learn that the landscape is actually becoming the upside down world itself.
Yeah, which I felt really pushed the stakes a lot higher this time too, because
yes.
So, and another thing is that with this season two, with season 2, it also gets us involved with having to also learn some of the dynamics between some of the newer characters. Like Max, the girl we discussed earlier, she is pretty much, likes to hang out and everything like that. Well, we also she deals with her psychotic stepbrother, because her stepbrother is basically the equivalent of Henry Bowers, if Henry Bowers actually at least had some sanity to him left. Because this dude, he goes the entire series trying to beat the shit out of that the guy Steve, who's
the bully in the first
the boy in the first one, who became good at the end of it, and he got with he was with Will's sister, or I'm sorry, not Will's sister, Mike's sister. Mike's sister.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool because this bully, he was a dick in the first season, and he pretty much downgraded and he became a nice guy. And he still has some dick to him in the beginning of season 2, but he's not a bully no more. He's kind of pretty much retired that role. And pretty much this new dude comes in, and man, he's an even bigger fucking prick.
Yeah.
He's abusive as fuck.
He's actually, you know what, if this was going to be more of an adaptation of Henry Bowers from if the new one, it's almost like the later years of him, because this dude looks even more bigger, Yes. But anyway, he goes throughout the entire show basically trying to run over the kids. He's also trying to beat the shit out of Steve. He
has it out for Lucas.
Yeah, especially him. And also that's another thing too, is that Lucas and Max go through like this thing where he's basically holding a secret from her, and she's trying to learn more about it. And that's when. I think
also that Lucas and Dustin, they also have like a thing for this girl.
Yeah.
So they're kind of going back and forth trying to impress this girl, because you get like that first, that young crush type feel where they both got a crush on her.
Mm-hmm.
So you got that whole like boys are fighting each other, or not really mean to each other. They're just kind of like back and forth.
Yeah.
Trying to impress her.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And there's also some other things too. I like to well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I'm trying to think.
With the bully and his sister, you led to believe that something happened in California, because they're from California. They actually established they're from California, and something happened with their real mother, which resulted in them getting with where the bully's brother, the bully's dad gets with his stepsister's mom, and they wanted to start a new life somewhere different.
Yeah.
So you learn to believe, wonder, and he's kind of pretty much acting like a prick because he didn't want to move, and he thinks it sounds boring, and he's taking it all out on her for moving.
Yeah, which I actually buy, because I do like how they. Because, I mean, he does come across as a very typical bully in this, but you also get the idea, too, that he's also very scared of his dad, because his dad basically...
His dad's a fucking prick.
Yeah, because...
He's an ex-military dude where he, like, beats on him and shit.
Yeah. So, it's almost... That's what I'm saying. That's why I get kind of comparisons with him and Henry Bowers, because in the book of It, Henry Bowers goes through a similar thing with his dad.
Yeah, which... that was one of my little minor cons with it, that we didn't get the real exposure of the dad being such a big prick. This one feels like it makes up for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But also,
this dude actually shows it.
Yeah, but also one of the other things too. But to kind of basically get into more to my pros of this show, like of this season, I really love the way that this season is taking more risks with some of the characters, and it's also updating some things that we didn't see in the first season.
Yeah. No offense to first season, I absolutely loved the first season, but I feel like this one upped it in almost every category that you can possibly do. Let me get to my biggest pro. I loved the Halloween theme in this film.
Oh, I did too.
Oh my god, dude! And you think the first one was 80s nostalgic? This one takes it to another fucking level. It tops it. You're talking about, you see Michael Myers, Jason, Freddy, Ghostbusters. They do everything that was big when this time came out.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love the way that they kind of have like that Halloween kind of look too with the orange. I think it's orange in some parts.
Yes, it's like an orange fill-in, and it's like, they really promote the whole like Michael Myers thing, because there's a scene where Mad Max is actually dressed like him, and she comes out like the way she's dressed like Michael Myers in the trick or treat scene actually brings you back to the first Halloween where you're more missed. You're kind of scared of Michael Myers because he just hid behind the shadows, and she was doing that, fucking with him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And plus, you also have like some other pros I have too. Is I have the score about the same as the first season. It's still great. I love the synthesized music. I don't know which one I like better, because I do like both seasons' music as far as score.
I think they added quite a little bit more in this one, but majority of the score is actually reused.
Yeah,
from the first season.
Most of it is also the soundtrack too, because the soundtrack also comes. The new songs they add to are pretty catchy. They even, not going to go into detail because, well, we'll get into spoilers here later, but there is actually one part where they even bring back a song that was from the first season, which was that "Should I Say or Should I Go?"
Yeah.
So, this series alone really puts you into the mind of what it's like to make a show based off of 80s material. It's movies that were fun in the 80s and everything, but it also has a lot of heart to it, because I can honestly say, like, all the kids, once again, are great in this season. They really have great chemistry.
Everybody's got great chemistry in this show. It's amazing. Like, all that stuff. I also like the whole, like, where we finally get the Mike's sister and the one you remember in the first season, we all watched how Will's brother and her, he has like a thing for her, but she just didn't see nothing in him other than a good friendship. And this one, it actually officially expands into where they actually do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because to be honest, I always felt like Jonathan, Will's brother, I always wanted him to get with her than Steve. Like, even though in this season I appreciate Steve does up the ante, he does actually show a lot more heroism in this season.
Yeah.
I always just felt like, Jonathan at least felt like he was more of the character you want to root for to get the girl.
Yeah. And I liked, like you said, like the brother, or the bully from the first season that was with the sister, Mike's sister. You get a lot of him connecting with Dustin too, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, which
I actually really like their chemistry together. Because there's a scene where Dustin is really needing to find this monster, because he finds out that the little slug that he was trying to befriend actually is killed his cat and trying to actually kill people. So he needs somebody, because there's a little breakup between him and Lucas, and he pretty much needs. He ends up asking that dude. I forgot the character's name in that. The boyfriend from the first season. What was his character's name? Steve. Him and Steve actually team up together in finding this thing.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, Steve does actually have some. He does actually have some great character development in this season. A lot better than coming from the first one. And in fact, they all do. I think the only one. I'll get to this later. I think for the most part, everyone does actually have quite a step up from the last season. One of the things I also really appreciate.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, one of the things I also appreciated the score the detail they put into as well is, even though some parts of it are still CGI looking, there is actually a lot more brutality in this one than there is in the first season.
Oh yeah, it actually shows. You know what? First season, I know there was some blood, but I know that the show was kind of pretty much spanning away from the whole blood scene. But this one actually really shows some really gruesome details of people getting killed.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It actually, we'll get to that here in a little bit. It actually has emotional deaths in it. So it's like, what? Type feel. But then you end up later on in the story when Will's, kind of pretty much, they're trying to bring him back and everything, and he's pretty much gone now. You get to see this hospital, because now these creatures are all getting released from this upside down world, and you get to actually see the hospital actually becoming good side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and plus, also, just everything, all the overall with the way that they are pushing things more with the story on how to up things from the first season. Because I've actually heard a lot of people complain that this season did feel a little too much like a rinse and repeat from the first season, but I disagree because I really feel like they did a lot of things different this time.
Oh yeah, dude. I just don't get it because, all right, let me say some of my other good pros. I did like how a lot of people might complain about this. I actually liked it. I liked how they used Eleven in the minimum kind of way. They didn't use her like they did with the first season, where this one, they kind of let her go find her own story, and then towards the end, then she starts seeing images of bad things happen to Mike and Will and all them. Then towards the end, she knows she has to go back to Hawkins.
Yeah.
I do like that, because if you had her with them, it kind of lowers the vulnerability, and it pretty much rehashes the first season. I know a lot of people bitched about 11 not being much in this series, in this season, but I think that was actually a good move by the writers.
Well, yeah, me too, because you also want to push more vulnerability of your characters.
Yeah, because if you have 11 on every fucking corner, she can defeat these fuckers in like a one slap.
That's what I'm saying. So I really appreciated that. So, I mean, really...
I also liked... this one, which is another pro for me, I ended up loving the emotions. This one really, other than season 1 where they had the end where Eleven says goodbye, Mike, and then she goes and you thought she died, that was pretty much the only emotions you had in that one. With this one, this fucking one was a emotional roller coaster.
Oh, definitely, man.
Her mother and her sister, and then the part where her sister's screaming and crying, and then Eleven's like, I got to go back. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then you have the Sean Astin part we'll get into in a little bit. Then you have Will. You really think you're about to lose Will in this season. Yeah,
definitely. And that's what I'm saying. It definitely pushes everything that you really like to see advance the story. And it really does that pretty good.
And not with that, another emotion, I really liked how Hopper in this one, where he is showing love for Eleven so much because he lost his daughter.
Yeah, I found that really, really emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was really heartbreaking.
And it's like he pretty much said he loves Eleven so much because it's like he's trying, he needs a daughter figure because he lost his daughter. So it's like he doesn't want to lose her.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I love pretty much everything that was great about the first one. I felt like it upped it even more with this one. And to be honest, I really don't have many cons. Like, I have very few cons with this season.
We can't end this without talking the epic final battle.
Yeah.
We haven't even discussed that yet.
Yeah, so before we get to our cons, there are some little things that we're going to pretty much spoil now with. This basically involves with the climax. So one of my biggest pros as well is this final climax that takes place pushes everything that you pretty much took from the first season, but made it 3 times as, or 100 times bigger this time.
Oh, I know. That climax just was, oh my God. And you almost lost 11, like, completely.
Yeah.
And then you get, like, a little backstory with Papa saying you will die.
Yeah.
If you do this.
And not just that, but you also lose, but you also have, like, heavy, you also have pretty much the creature that we pretty much were talking about earlier with Dustin, the creature they have, the Dardangians. They basically become like a whole army going after them after this
Yes.
when they escape from the world, and so that's basically,
and they pretty much killed the entire hospital.
Yeah,
like,
which
everybody dies.
Yeah,
in that army hospital thing, that research thing.
Yeah, and then pretty much this is also in this climax that takes place. We also get in one of the most emotional deaths of the series, which is the death of Sean Astin's character, where pretty much it deals with him trying to get away from the area that he was at when he was shutting down the rooms and stuff, and then on his way back, he basically, after he meets up with Winona Ryder's character, he basically gets attacked, and then he gets eaten by all the creatures after Hopper tries to shoot him off. And that, to me, I thought was very, emotional.
Yeah, he gets torn the fuck up too, man.
Yeah.
But it plays like that with the sadness, It's just like, because we left a big gap out when we described about the hospital got taken over by these fucking things. And pretty much these things are released from that area that we saw in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
We find out that hospital still had that thing going on, so they were still testing that thing out. And that's where they all escape, and pretty much this hospital's done.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And then, like, the doctor who's been, trying to help out with Will and all that, he actually goes on the good side, and he pretty much gets pretty fucked up in this one, but he doesn't die.
Yeah, he's just
getting pretty tore up. But he actually, compared to Papa from season 1, this doctor actually sacrifices.
Yeah.
Trying to save everybody.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And
not only that, you also almost lose Hopper when he fell in that little hole.
Yeah, because, he gets, because that's what I'm saying, when he goes down there, it seems like all hope is lost for him.
Yep.
And then, with the climax as well, when things go down, you also get involved with the boys and everyone who are pretty much having to stop everything from going on underneath the tunnel. Because in a way, the climax kind of reminded me of, it did kind of remind me of the original miniseries of It. If, instead of them fighting the clown, it was like they were fighting all the minions of It.
Yep. And what was really cool with that climax, you got 11. Pretty much they find out that 11, because you come to find out that Papa made 11 open up this portal world. That's why the shit is happening. It's because Papa, he was like, he wanted to up the anthem and wanted to explore this other world, so he made 11 open it. So 11 is is pretty much has to close this world back up and sew it back shut.
Yeah.
And that's where you see her kind of like where her and Hopper are pretty much having to go in and end this once and for all. And while that's going down, you also have Dustin and I can't remember that boyfriend's name again. I keep forgetting his name. Steve were stuck in this, and you pretty much feel like they're going to die.
Yeah. You really push a lot of risks with the characters that way too. And from when we get to these to that, it really pushes a lot of the stakes for it. And not to mention, what I also really like? I like that these creatures, they kind of resemble I don't know how to describe them, but they look very familiar. Like, when they open their mouths and stuff, did it kind of give you an impression that they kind of look like the mouth from the new It? when he opens his mouth.
Yes, that's why I have a feeling this thing is connected somehow to Pennywise's original world.
Yeah, because I'm saying because it seemed like there was like thousands of teeth or something inside these creatures' mouths. It looked very similar to what it did in the new adaptation that came out.
Exactly, and like that's something we'll probably discuss in like another time. I don't want to take it too much time of discussing something that we don't know for sure that is connected, but that whole theory with possibly connecting these two worlds, if Stephen King had really approved, man, it's already set the world up to actually do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
yeah, and not only that, they kind of remind me of like Venus flytraps.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing too. Yeah.
So.
But anyway, basically, to boil it down, was that I like that it seems to me that when we actually finally get to our endings as well for this season, the last season, it's almost like they're always going to end on Christmas because they actually really have like that, because after they defeat everything and the climax is done, where pretty much 11 basically gets it to where the portal is closed for good. We get really this great like ending that's actually had me like tears of joy in a way, because it actually
exactly like it could be like you can close it for good here and you'd be happy.
Yeah.
Type feel.
Well, I'm saying like it gave me the feels, like, basically, because that ending where pretty much you have everyone celebrating and it's like around Christmas time, like the first season, which I guess I'm only guessing the next season's probably going to end on Christmas time as well. Basically,
you're at they went to like some kind of dance.
Yeah,
like
it was the snow dance or something like that.
Dance,
the snowball.
Yep.
Yeah, and they go there, and this is when we finally get to see Max and Lucas actually show their friendship together, and he becomes like he dances with her for the first time, and that's when we see that they might actually end up together. And then we also get to see that Dustin and Mike and all of them are there too, and Dustin gets basically a changeover, and he starts dancing with Mike's sister.
Yeah, because you remember he was taught by what's his face how to like wear hair gel and how to have
Steve,
his hair look, and Steve, he pretty much trains him. And at this point now, Steve has pretty much accepted that Mike's sister is moved on and got with Jonathan, Will's brother, and he pretty much accepts it and said he's pretty happy about what's going on. Like, he hates that his girl moved on, but he accepts what's going on. But I don't want to backtrack because we keep backtracking. That scene where that fucking Mad Max's brother was beating the shit out of him, holy fucking hell.
I know, that to me was thinking that, it was going to go down that, is she going to really kill him or something?
Yeah, dude, he was beating the fuck out of him bad. He was beating Steve's fucking... You see blood coming out of his ears, his fucking nose, everything.
Yeah, and that's when we get to finally see that Max can't put any more up with his shit, so she actually gets really mad and starts beating the shit out of him right there. And then,
she stabs him.
Well, she stabs him, yeah, and then
needle to put him to sleep.
Yeah, and then
pretty much the closure with that. You're probably asking whatever happened to that. Well, pretty much they made an agreement that that Mad Max said, all right, you need to never touch me ever again. Pretty much the brothers, pretty much, he's kind of accepted to stop being the way he is. Type feel, because you do get that closure where he kind of smiles as she's getting, in a dress and all that.
Yeah.
Like he's not as mean anymore. He's accepted.
Yeah, it's kind of like how they did with Steve in the first season.
Yeah.
So, at this point, yeah,
you get your closure where 11 is like in love with Mike, and you get it kind of in the middle, and she kind of gets jealous because you kind of had a feeling that Mike was going to get with the redhead.
Max.
With Mad Max.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you kind of feel like they're going to get together. And then actually 11 tried to connect with them, but then she saw them hold hands and it pissed her off.
Yeah.
But you actually get a good closure because Hooper makes a deal with this hospital to finally let her free.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that he talks to the doctor and says 11 is not your test subject, and then they make pretty much the deal is this hospital at the end closes down for good.
Yeah.
So it's no longer there anymore. And although personnel's had to leave, everybody moved, the hospital's done. And the last doctor to survive pretty much granted 11 to be free. And she is now living with Hopper now. Like, that's her father now and everything. And she lives happy ever after, kissing Mike, and you get to see that little dance they do. And you get a lot of, like, classic 80s John Hughes songs in this scene.
Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to mention too. I love the way that the characters in this kind of at least the teen, like the older brother and the older sister and all them, they do feel like your type of characters that you would have saw in a John Hughes film, in a way. So I did enjoy that, and like you were saying, the music is definitely something out of a John Hughes film, especially when they play that Cyndi Lauper song "Time After Time."
Now, here's a thing that they do bring up, and this is around the time that she met her sister, which we also forgot to mention. The sister also has a cool psychic ability where she makes people see shit that ain't there.
Yeah, which I thought was very fascinating.
Yeah, and it made him, like, it was pretty cool power that her adopted sister has. But you also get the part where, even though we kind of saw him die in the first season, there's a hint where they're about to kill this one dude, and he said that Papa's alive.
Yeah, Matthew Modine actually comes back in this season as basically hallucinations of 11 seeing him and everything. Because also we forgot to mention, 11 has the ability to where now when she goes blindfolded, she can actually go into like this dreamlike state where she can see basically characters right there, which is, I thought, pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
but they also hint that is Matthew Modine coming back? Because we saw him die in season 1, but that final guy they were about to kill says he's alive.
Well, he probably could become back because he probably may not have actually fully died. He may have got resurrected by probably the upside down creatures.
I wouldn't say that because that'd be going way out there. But what I'm saying is, I feel like the doctors were able to pull him out and then actually save his life and keep him alive. The bad people.
Yeah, because we never see
did that because they do. One of the bad people's, because we said earlier that the adopted sister, what she's been doing all her life is finding these people and killing them for doing what they did to her in the hospital.
Yeah.
And then when they come up to this final guy, he says that I could take you to him, and they're like, who? And they're like, that Papa.
Yeah. And so that gives you the idea that they are set.
Never get any closure to that, so I'm wondering if that's going to lead into season 3.
That's probably what it is. So,
yeah.
But also keep in mind too, this is also we are getting the impression too that the next season will also probably bring up we'll probably bring up events that with the sister again. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I'm wondering if 11 is 11. And the sister, you find out she was number 8.
Yeah.
You're led to believe that there's more test subjects.
That's what I'm saying. So it could open a lot more ideas to where is there probably some other ones we never seen before in the laboratory.
Yeah, well, from what my understanding is, in season 1, they did say that 11 was the final subject. So that means you've already seen number 8. So you're missing 9 more. So I'm wondering if we're going to get to see the other 9.
Yeah, we probably will. But now,
and you know what? I actually think they're building up to where they have all these 11 and the other 10 together, and they might actually be the ones that capable of taking down the Shadow Monster. Because in the end of season 2 in this season, when they're having a ball and they're having fun and all that stuff and kissing and enjoying time, the thing starts tipping over, and you see the Shadow Monster's alive, and he's ready to, like, he's pulling a Thanos, so he goes, I guess I got to do it myself type feel.
Yeah, so that's got me really excited what they're going to do with season 3. Now, to get pretty much into any of my cons I might have, now these are just some minor things that I'm sure will probably be explored later in season 3. I did kind of feel like if I had like really any cons, it was probably the stuff going on with these are kind of just certain decisions that some of the characters make. I noticed that it is emotional, don't get me wrong. I love the emotional thing they do for Sean Astin's character. But there is one thing that I kind of felt like it probably could have been prevented. There's the part where he goes into that part where he's unlocking the doors. He mistakenly leaves his gun behind. Now, if he probably would have brought his gun back, he probably could have survived.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's probably just a minor nitpick.
That didn't bother me. That just made you go, oh, it made you more like yelling at the screen, pick up your gun.
Yeah.
So I didn't have no problem with that.
Well, and another thing, too, is that, I guess now that I kind of think about it, too, I noticed that while all the characters are getting great character development, the only one that I was kind of questioning about was the brother, Jonathan. Because I noticed that in this one, he doesn't really have much of a change in this season.
No, we did leave out the part where him and the sister were going, and there's a guy that pretty much that I can't remember if he was in season 1, but they go find that conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, I think that wasn't that the father of Barb from the first season?
No, father of Barb is in this season. He was the fat dude and the fat wife.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they went to their house in episode 2 or something. No, you already seen Barb's family, which, by the way, Barb's family's still looking for their daughter, but in the end, whenever the hospital ends up actually getting exposed, because this Russian dude, or not really Russian dude, it's this dude that believes Russians are involved, but whenever Jonathan and the sister end up taking evidence because they found out that they couldn't expose it in Hawkins, or else they'll get killed by those doctors and research people. They decide to go to this guy, and he leaks it to the world, which gets this place closed down in the end. Yeah. And with that dude, yeah, so that was another thing that they added to it. And then that's when Barb's parents actually we get a confirmed Barb's dead.
Yeah, I always wonder what happened. I forgot that I kind of forgot that she passed away in the first season.
Well, yeah, they kind of showed her body, but we were led to believe that there was still a possibility that they might have just possession her, and then you thought that maybe she can come back, but now we got her confirmed that she's dead. Because whenever that shit got released in the final episode, and they said now everybody knows about it, that's where they find the cover-up of Barb's death, and it's confirmed she died. So.
Got you. Well, if I had I got you now. Now, if I had really any other minor things, now I'm sure this is going to explore again, in the next season or something. Even though I was very emotionally invested with Eleven's sister, who's called 8 or Callie, I felt like they did quite take a lot of time out of it to build up to her. They didn't really they built up to her, but I felt like they very underused her, so to speak, because they only got to see her in one episode or 2 episodes.
I wouldn't say it didn't bother me, but what I thought they could have done was, since they did bring her into the story in episode 1, and then they waited till episode 7 to fucking bring it back, what they could have done is the sister could have told those punks, I'm going with my sister, I love her so much, and then she could have helped 11 end it.
Yeah,
or be part of the story. They should have done it that way, instead of just saying the sister decided to stay back and say, no, never mind, because she was really wanting to go with her sister.
Well, that, and also I kind of felt like we could have maybe gotten at least another episode to see more of her, because you notice that we only get to see 2 episodes with her.
Yeah, that was if anything, I do not got any, I don't have any flaws or cons pretty much at all in this season, but I do say that I think they need to up the episodes instead of just keeping just 9.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying you could have seen more of the robberies and stuff going on with the sister, and some of the things that we see behind the scenes and all that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Season 2 was 9 episodes. Wasn't season 1 10?
I think the first season was... No, it was 8.
It was 8, so they only upped it by 1 episode. A lot of people do think that they should at least try to see if they can get it up to 12.
That would be interesting. I could see that. But
yeah. because there are, like, if you were to say that the season could have went up to 12 or at least 10, which I thought it was 10 until I watched 9 and I go, what the fuck? This is a closure. There can't be another episode. So doing 12, I think they could have fit that gap that you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, but like I said, that's just a minor kind of thing. It would have maybe pushed more of the development a little more for me. But that I can see where they're going with the next seasons, at least, though.
Yeah, and like I said, to me, I have no flaws. I have more what they could have done more than flaws. I really don't have flaws. In fact, I think I gave the first season 9.5 out of 10. This one is, I'm going to put higher than that, but I'll give you my score here at the end of the review. But I think that if they decided to end the show completely, I felt like season 2 closed it out.
Yeah, even though it does kind of end with a potential opener for the next one.
If you would have added maybe 3 or 4 more episodes and had the Shadow Monster come to our world type shit, they could have kept that closure they did with season 2, and you would have the happy ending closing.
Yeah, because well, that's what I'm saying. But overall, though, I mean, to be honest, I don't really have like major flaws. I just kind of like have minor little things. But I still highly enjoyed the season, and so I don't really.
I don't get why people are fucking saying that this was so identical to season 1. No, it fucking wasn't. In fact, there's almost the only identical thing that keeps on going is pretty much the score is kind of the same. But other than that, I really don't see any identical. This show did everything that it needed to do to be different.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
In season 2. And there's really no flaws for me. I have no cons. I thought it was a perfect 10 out of 10.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's. I didn't grade the first Stranger Things, but if I did, I probably would have had it like a 9.5 out of 10. With this one, I think it was either. I'm debating it might have been probably a 9 or 9.5 out of 10 for the first season, but with this one, it's about the same. Probably about 9.5, about a 9.5 out of 10 for me. Like I still highly love it. And I feel like this has now become one of my favorite TV shows.
Exactly, and same here. And I thought season 2 done perfectly. I have no flaws with it. It's a 10 out of 10. So I love season 2. I thought they upped it in every way possible, and I was satisfied with what I watched.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. So I mean, despite my little things that I could have seen, there might be some like this because really my only minor flaw I did also have too was there was maybe like 1 or 2 characters I felt like didn't really have much development in the season compared to the first one, but I still overall highly enjoyed the season. So with that, I am going to give the Stranger Things season 2 a 9.5 out of 10. And for those of you who have also checked out both seasons of Stranger Things, let us know what you guys thought about them because we're actually really curious. And I am definitely looking forward to the next season next year. Yep. So for those of you who are also and feel free to, for those of you who have been listening, also let us know what you guys thought about Stranger Things as well, both seasons, and let us know in the comments what you thought about it. And if you like what you see here, you can feel free to like and subscribe to our channel, and check out some of our other audio and our other reviews on our website at filmfreaks.com and on our YouTube page and on SoundCloud. And we'll be seeing you here on our next review. We'll see you later.
All right.